There's a strange moment when you can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still feel completely alone. You can sit in a crowded room, scroll past thousands of faces, answer messages all day, and somehow feel that nobody is really there. But the real answer is far stranger. That feeling may not be a modern weakness at all. It may be one of the oldest warning systems inside your brain. Imagine waking up thousands of years ago. There's no apartment above you, no phone beside you, no glowing screen waiting for you. There's only darkness, a small fire, and the sound of people breathing nearby. You're not necessarily talking to them. You might even be annoyed by them, but their presence matters. For most of human history, being connected to other people was not just emotionally comforting. It was practical survival. Someone could help you carry food. Someone could watch for danger. Someone could teach you where water was. Someone could care for your child while you searched for food. And if you became injured, exhausted, or sick, other people could make the difference between recovering and dying. So what happens when your brain starts to believe those connections are disappearing? It creates a feeling you know very well. Loneliness. You usually think of loneliness as an emotion, something sad, something personal. But researchers have proposed a stranger possibility. Loneliness may function somewhat like hunger. Hunger tells you that your body needs energy. Thirst tells you that your body needs water. Pain tells you that something may be wrong. Loneliness may tell you that something is wrong with your social world. Psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness and developed an evolutionary theory of it. The basic idea is simple. Your brain treats social connection as important enough to protect. When the connection you need is missing, loneliness creates discomfort. That discomfort pushes you toward reconnection. In other words, loneliness may not have evolved because evolution wanted humans to suffer. It may have evolved as a warning you're drifting too far from the group. Pay attention. Reconnect. But loneliness is not the same as being physically alone. You can sit by yourself and feel peaceful. That is solitude. Loneliness is different. It is the painful feeling that your social world is not giving you the connection you need. That explains something strange about modern life. You can have hundreds of online contacts and still feel lonely. You can live with someone and still feel lonely. You can work in a huge office and still feel lonely. You can attend a party surrounded by people and feel completely isolated. Your brain does not simply count bodies. It evaluates relationships. Can you trust these people? Can you speak honestly? Would anyone notice if you disappeared? Would someone help you when things went wrong? Those questions matter to your ancestors. Imagine two prehistoric humans sitting beside a fire. They are technically together, but one does not trust the other. They do not share food. They do not warn each other about danger. They do not help when one is injured. From the outside, they are not alone. From the inside, the situation is very different. Your ancestors survived through cooperation. They shared food, raised children, watched for danger, passed down knowledge. They also argued, competed, rejected people, repaired relationships, and formed alliances. The human social world was never simply peaceful friendship. It was a constantly changing network of relationships. And your brain evolved inside that network. This helps explain why rejection can hurt so much. Someone ignores your message and your mind keeps returning to it. Someone excludes you from a group and you replay the moment. Someone you trust becomes distant and your brain starts searching for an explanation. Why? Because social disconnection could once have serious consequences. Being pushed away might mean losing access to shared food, protection, information, allies, or help with children. Rejection was not necessarily just embarrassing. It could change your odds of survival. So a useful human brain would become sensitive to social signals. It would notice facial expressions, it would remember conversations, it would look for rejection, it would try to repair relationships. Researchers studying loneliness have found something similar. John Cacioppo and his colleagues found that perceived social isolation is more important than simply counting how many people someone interacts with. Your brain is not running a census. It is asking whether your relationships feel meaningful and reliable, and that creates a fascinating paradox. The feeling that is supposed to push you toward people can sometimes make people harder to approach. Think about what happens when you have been lonely for a long time. You want connection, but you may also become more sensitive to rejection. You want to talk, but you worry about saying the wrong thing. You want friendship, but you start assuming that other people do not really like you. So you hesitate. The hesitation creates distance. The distance creates more loneliness. And the loneliness makes social situations feel even more threatening. A loop begins that may be especially important today. Your brain evolved in environments where social information was local. You knew the people around you. You could see who was helping, who was angry, who was injured, and who had disappeared. Your social world had physical boundaries. Modern life does not. You can wake up and immediately see hundreds of people. You can watch strangers laughing on a screen. You can see parties you were not invited to. You can receive dozens of notifications and still have nobody you feel comfortable calling. Your brain receives enormous quantities of social information. But information is not the same thing as connection. 1,000 photographs cannot necessarily provide one trusted person. 100 comments cannot necessarily provide someone who would come looking for you. A large follower count cannot tell your nervous system that someone will help when you're vulnerable. You can be socially saturated and socially hungry at the same time. And your ancestors may never have experienced anything quite like that. For most of human history, your social network was limited by geography. If you knew someone, you probably encountered them physically. You worked beside them, ate beside them, traveled beside them. Repeated contact created something powerful: shared history. A relationship becomes stronger through accumulated experience. One meal, then another. One conversation, then another. One act of help, then another. Eventually, a person becomes predictable. Their presence tells your nervous system something important. You're not facing everything alone. This may be why small social rituals can feel surprisingly meaningful. The same friend you talk to every week, the family meal, the neighbor you always greet, the person who checks on you. These actions may look trivial, but repeated social rituals tell your brain that relationships persist. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar became famous for studying the relationship between primate brain size and social group size. His work helped inspire the social brain hypothesis. Managing relationships is cognitively expensive. Your brain has limits. You cannot maintain thousands of equally deep relationships. Instead, human social life develops layers. A few people are extremely close. More people are familiar. Many others are simply recognizable. That matters because loneliness is not necessarily solved by maximizing the number of contacts. Your brain cares disproportionately about certain relationships. The person you can call when something goes wrong, the person who knows when you're pretending to be fine, the person who would notice that your silence is unusual, the person you can sit beside without needing to perform. These relationships create trust, and trust allowed your ancestors to divide the work of survival. One person could notice something another missed. One could remember a route, another could recognize a plant, another could care for children, another could watch for danger. The group became more capable than any individual. So loneliness may be less like a verdict and more like a notification. Something needs attention. Your social world needs maintenance. You may need to call someone, repair an argument, join a group, ask for help, offer help, or simply admit that you're lonely. That can be surprisingly difficult because modern culture often treats loneliness as evidence that something is wrong with you. But from an evolutionary perspective, needing other humans is not a defect. Your ancestors did not survive by becoming perfectly self-sufficient. They survived by becoming exceptionally good at cooperation. That is a very different story. There is another reason loneliness can feel physical. People often describe it as an ache, an emptiness, or a heaviness. Researchers have compared loneliness to a kind of social pain. The analogy is useful. If you touch something hot, pain tells you to pull away. If you become disconnected from meaningful relationships, loneliness may tell you to move toward connection. The signal is unpleasant because unpleasant signals are good at getting attention. But an alarm can become a problem when it never turns off. Research by John Cacioppo, Louise Hockley, and others has linked persistent perceived social isolation with changes involving stress, sleep, and health. Loneliness can also change how you interpret social situations. A friend sends a short message. Maybe they are angry. Someone cancels plans. Maybe nobody wants you there. A stranger looks away. Maybe they dislike you. The brain begins filling gaps with threatening explanations. Then your behavior can change. You talk less. You avoid invitations, you leave early. Other people notice the distance. They may respond with distance of their own. The ancient alarm becomes trapped in a modern loop. So did your ancestors feel lonely? Almost certainly. Humans are too social, and relationships are too complicated for loneliness to be absent. But the more interesting question is what loneliness meant. It may have been a message. You are outside the circle. Something important is missing. Look around. Find your people. And that message may still be running inside you. When you feel lonely today, your brain does not know that you have Wi-Fi. It does not know that your phone contains hundreds of contacts. It does not understand follower counts. It is still asking an ancient question. Who is here? Who can you trust? Who would help? Who knows you? Who would notice if you were gone? That is why loneliness can arrive in the middle of a crowded room. The crowd answers one question. There are people around you, but your deeper brain is asking another. Do you belong to them? So the next time you feel that quiet ache while surrounded by people, remember what your brain may actually be saying. Not that you're broken, not that you're weak, not that you have failed at being independent. Just this. Something important is missing. Find your people, because the feeling you call loneliness may be one of the oldest messages your ancestors left inside you.